My name is Jimmy O'Connor. I'm the Executive Director of the Second Story Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that tries to help people in the substance use disorder space. And I'm sitting here today with my friend Chris Wayne. Chris Whalen, sorry. We're good last names. And we just thought we'd talk today about our experiences in recovery, but specifically having gotten the opportunity after a inpatient treatment to experience a truly long-term recovery program that had structure, housing, work, and 12-step education all built in. So with that, I'm going to start by asking Chris, what was it like out there before you came in to treatment?
Not great. I spent the last 4 years, I was in active addiction for about 27 years or so, but it was a slow, gradual decline. But the last 4 years was as bad as it got. I was homeless. If I was lucky, I would find a young lady who would let me stay with her for a month or so at a time until I burned that bridge. I had a vehicle. I slept in my car quite a bit. But there was nothing good about it. Just homeless, sad, desperate, in pain all the time. Just either sick or just beat up. It took a toll on my body. My hands and feet, I was an IV heroin user, so my hands and feet were constantly swollen. I was also a roofer when I could drag myself out of bed and get to work, so just beat up. I was just tired. I like to say, it's cliche or whatever, but I was truly just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
So you got to Haymarket, if I remember right.
Yes.
And then you called the Center for Long-Term Opportunity, right?
I went to a hospital in Indiana, and it was supposed to be a detox program, but it turned out it was only for alcohol. I was on heroin, so they wouldn't allow me to enter their detox program, so they put me in their psych ward for 3 days. And they were trying to find a rehab for me. They could not find anybody to take me in that 3 days, and I did not want to be in the psych ward longer than 3 days. So I was released to a friend of mine, and I told her, you just gotta keep me locked down. You gotta keep me in your house. Don't listen to anything I have to say trying to get out of here. Just keep me locked down until I can find a rehab to go to. And actually, my aunt who was in the program knew Kurt, who came through the center. And I actually had the number for the center before I had Haymarket's number. So I reached out to the center, and you guys were the one who put me in touch with Haymarket. So I got into Haymarket and then called the center back. So it was kind of a little bit flipped. I had made contact with the center before I got to Haymarket.
And what made you think that was the way forward?
I was on the west side of the city of Chicago. I don't know how well you guys know the west side of the city of Chicago, but it is not the best place in the world. And a farm in Palos Park sounded like the furthest possible thing from the west side of Chicago. And that's where I wanted to be, as far away from there as humanly possible.
What do you remember about the interview?
I remember you cutting me off. I just went into my spiel. At that point, I had my spiel down. I would open up to anybody who would listen about how miserable my life was. And I just remember 10 minutes in, you're going, "Hey, stop. You sound exhausted." And that, I was exhausted. And that's what I remember the most. Just you cutting me off in the middle of my story. You just sound tired.
I remember that. I remember looking at you and said, "You look exhausted."
And
you put your head down and you just said, "I am exhausted."
And that was with 24 days or so out of it. So imagine 30 days before that. It was not pleasant.
So what was we let you in, you agreed to come, you had some time to think about it, and you still showed up.
Yeah.
What was your experience when you first got there in the first few months showing up there?
I didn't want to be there. I remember leaving the interview, and I had come down to interview with Corey, and we got out to the parking lot afterwards, and Corey was like, shoot, I don't think I got in. And I was like, shoot, I think I did get in. And I was like, I had every step of the way been convinced I just needed these 3 days, or I needed these 28 days, and I could go back to my life and be fine. But for some reason, I just listened along the way to people smarter than me who told me, no, you need a little more time. And that's how it was with the center. I got there, and I just did not want to be there. I wanted to get back to my life. I was 40 years old and couldn't imagine taking a year break. Like, even though I had done nothing productive the previous 2 decades, like, taking a year break is going to set me back so far. Like, I need to hit the ground running. I got these 28 days, and I just need to get back to life. And then I started meeting the people. Like, this guy, the first night there, like, went and bought me a case of Mountain Dew, something as simple as that. Like, probably the nicest thing anybody had done for me in the last couple of years. It was as simple as buying a case of Mountain Dew. And then the rummage sale was probably a month and a half or so after I got there, and just seeing this army of volunteers come in with no other agenda than to help us out. Like, I don't know, there wasn't like that one thing where the like switch just flipped for me, but sometime in the first couple months, just the community around it and the people actually caring about me sunk in enough that I was like, I will give this a legitimate go and see what happens.
So I remember there were things that were sinking in, right? Volunteers, people who didn't want anything from you other than for you to get better, right? I remember saying there's no hustle here, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I also remember the conflict being, a struggle to buy in all the way that what you used to tell me is these aren't my people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That you had an idea about where you would come from, and that somehow where you would come from, that's who you were, and that's where you were going to end up still.
I remember that group when you asked. Like, it was weird because we talked about, like, not rushing and just be present here for the day. But there was a group real early on when you asked, like, what's your plan for after you leave here? And I'm not supposed to think about a plan. But I'm like, well, I'm going back where I came from. Which 2 months previous, the number one agenda for me was to get as far away from where I came from. But as soon as I started feeling a little bit better, it was like, yeah, I got to go back to where I came from. I don't know, like, I relapsed 6 months in, and like that was where the ultimate surrender was. But like they talked like planting the seed or whatever. The seed was planted with the people, which I didn't want anything to do with the people. That all came from a Monday night meeting. I'm standing outside the Monday night meeting, and this is during the whole like
can't wear hats
thing and everything. Can't wear hats. If alcohol's not your problem, you don't belong here. And I'm like, it wasn't so, these weren't my people, but I felt like, because that's what we do, right? I felt like I wasn't their people, so I have to put my foot in the ground and these not be my people before they determine that that I'm not their people.
And it's hard too. I think there's especially, and you said it, right? When you start feeling better, the conflict is, I think, to continue changing, right? I changed enough. I changed a little. That's safe enough. Now I'm good, right?
Right.
And the challenge is to continue to allow that change, wherever it may lead.
Yeah, because if you don't change, you can't change enough. You have to change. I'll never forget sitting in the parking lot on my blue bags screaming at you. Like, I changed more than any MFer in that house. Like, how did I change more? Like, you didn't change enough. The proof was in the pudding. I was sitting on my blue bag 12 hours away from having a needle in my arm. Like, yeah, I changed. I changed. In those 6 months, I changed. I did not change enough. Like, it was crystal clear that I did not change enough.
So how long were you in that long-term program in Pathway?
I had 2 stints in it. The first one was 5.5 months, and I was gone for 3 weeks, I think it was. And then I came back. It's weird. I came back like 8 months or so, and then I got hired on as a program director there. And then I stayed, I think, another month and a half after that. But that last, I would say like 14 months altogether as like a phased member of that program.
So structurally about that program, what do you think was useful that you couldn't get anywhere else?
The time. I mean, for sure the time. The time, it was, it's just a combination of things. The community around it was incredible. Not just the program, the people in the program and around there, but the volunteers. Like, I call them the old ladies. They might not be the nicest, but like, the old ladies were wonderful. The people program related around there were wonderful. The time that I got was amazing. The group of guys, like, I think that was a huge help to have people very close in the same amount of time of sobriety as me, but then also like there was Jeremy, who was 8 months ahead of me, Joe, who was 2 years ahead of me, Colin 3 years, like
when you're 2 months sober, an extra 2 months is a lot. That's 50% more time than you have.
Like, if I'm looking at somebody with 15 years, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did that. I can't do that. But when I'm looking at somebody with 1, 2, and 3 years, I'm like, I can see that, and I can see how much better their life is at a year than mine is at 3 months, and how much better the guy with 2 years is than the guy with a year. And it's just easier tent poles or whatever you want to call it to get to.
So that's an interesting. I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know that I've talked about it much, but with the long-term program that I was the director of, when we took the time limits off and said, stick around for a year, maybe 18 months, depending on, how you're healing.
Right.
You got to see, it wasn't like a 20-day program where people are coming in and out constantly.
Right.
You can literally see the success of somebody 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months ahead of you. And do you think that made a difference, being able to stick with people, but also see that it's working?
Yeah, because I mean, that's how we are in nature, right? Like, we don't just have faith in things or trust things, right? Like,
just because I told you.
Yeah, right. I need to see some sort of verifiable proof. And that guy with a year who has a job on the outside, has a little bit of money in the bank, has a car, isn't a scumbag anymore, like, that resonates with you. Like, wait a minute, if he can do it, I can do it. And then same thing carried out, the guy with 2 years, the guy with 3 years. I think that helped me immensely. I see guys come, like, if all I was doing was hanging out with the guys who had the exact same amount of time as me, I don't know if I've been as successful. But like, seeing the guys and getting the guidance from the guys who have been exactly where I was not too long ago and can tell you the pitfalls that are coming up ahead of you, I think that was huge for me, without a doubt.
And I think that with that kind of time as well, I tried to tell everybody that, when you walked in, we need to take care of each other.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So when you're 4 months in, I'm looking at you saying you can help this guy who just walked in now, right?
Yeah.
That you are literally valuable, and that you have, while it may only be 4 months, it's 4 months experience that he doesn't have yet.
Right.
And that's terribly valuable to that person who's walking in the door. And you could be that guy who buys the Mountain Dew.
Without a doubt, yeah. like it was when I got my car, it was like a huge deal to me because for the last 8, 9 months, I've been being shuttled around by all these guys, and now all of a sudden, like I have a sponsee right now who goes out of his way every meeting to mention that he's giving guys rides to meetings. And there's part of me like, yeah, you need a pat on the back. And then there's the other part of me that's like, 2 years ago, I was going to every single meeting talking about how good I felt being able to drive guys around now. So like, I just get it, and that's the cool part of that program is how we've all gone through the exact same things, the exact same ways, and we can help each other navigate it.
What do you think, do you at all think that there was value in having a program where not only did you get that time, but you walked out of a 28-day treatment program and you had a legit job, you had real work to do?
Yeah, for sure. And the work, like, just the type of person I am, if I had come out of the 28-day program, I was going to go back to work regardless. I just have that in me. But the work, I had a real meaningful job that I had to get up and go to 40 hours a week. But I had it in an environment that was nurturing and understanding of the situation that I was in. Like, if I had just left Haymarket and gone back to my job driving a truck, like, I'd been working right away, but I wouldn't have been set up for success because there would have been nobody there. Even if I was completely open about what I was going through, there was nobody there who understood what I was going through and would have had the understanding or care. Like, the day Chris Posta threw me off of the farm, like, if I had a blow up like that at a normal job, like, I'm either quitting that job or I'm getting fired from that job. I'm not coming back across the street to my house to have my 2 counselors meet me on the path back to the home to have an hour-long conversation with me about how I need to handle things going forward. Like, I just would have burned my life to the ground and then gone and got high about it. Like, that's the big part of it is meaningful, real work, so you're not just alone with your thoughts, but also work in like a compassionate, understanding environment that's suited for the people that are going through the things they're going through. That's a big difference.
That was well put. What was the hardest thing for you there? What was hard about the program? What was hard for you?
My understanding of time early on, like, I went to you like once a week, like, I'm 40, I need a job, like, I need to get out of here, I need to get back on with my life. And just like, the time it took me and the energy it took you to make me understand, like, this year is an investment in the rest of your life. Like, that was difficult for me. Maybe if I was 20, just who I was going to be a pain in the butt about time anyways, but just coming in at 40, I was just in such a rush to get back to this life that I just didn't maintain in any way, shape, or form when I had it. And like, it's been like something I've been talking about a lot the last couple of months, like the get your stuff back versus to keep your stuff. And like, coming to the understanding that I wanted to be able to keep my stuff instead of just get it back was like the biggest challenge for me.
You kept it.
I've kept it.
What was the best thing for you? What do you remember that was really fun, really great?
The guys. Like, I had so much fun. Like, my biggest fear getting sober, like, how do you have fun? Like, I started getting high 12 years old. Like, so every, like, party or relationship or, like, everything was tied in my head to being high. Any fun I had was because I was high. Like, it took a long time to understand that all the misery I had was also because I was high. But I was just so certain if I remove drugs and alcohol from my life, I'm basically removing fun from my life. So I was terrified that being sober meant I would never have a good time again. I'm just a serious, go to work, go home, guy. Like, I had so much fun there. I didn't have like, I fancied myself like a popular guy. There was people around, but I had no real connection with anybody. Like, I made friends. Like, I started off with like 2 or 3. I remember having that conversation with you. Like, I got Joe, Jeremy, Colin. I'm good. I got this 3 more friends that I've ever had in my life. And you're like, sooner or later, you're gonna need more friends. I'm like, no, I don't. I got 3. I'm good. And now I just have like just this big, robust group of people I enjoy spending time around. I never thought that was possible.
You just stick around.
Yeah, it's incredible how it happened.
Tell me what your life is like now. What are you up to? What are you doing?
I
Where is it compared to where it was?
It's night and day. I mean, I have an apartment. It's like one of the. It's so silly, but it's like one of my greatest achievements is I had an apartment now for like 13, 14 months, and I've never once been late on rent. Like, we pay rent on time every single month, and like 27 years. I was living alone for 20 years. I never, if I strung 2 months together paying rent, it was because I found some woman to pay it for me. It was never anything to do with me. Like, so I like pay rent on time now. I haven't, we talk about this sometimes, like with some of the new guys that go, like, I haven't missed a day of work. Going back to my time at the center when I first got there, I've not missed a day of work in 2.5, 3 years almost. Like, I have a union roofing job. I thought for sure my entire adult life, like, I would work until the day I would die. I would probably die at work on a roof. If I take care of myself, there's a real legitimate chance I'm going to retire one day and be able to enjoy life as a retired person, which is something I never thought imaginable. I have great relationships with amazing people that I maintain without much work. It just is second nature at this point. I would like to think of myself as a helpful person. I have a couple of people who I guide through this program, and I get to watch them grow a little bit and experience some changes, and that touches me more than I probably let on to them guys. Life is really good. It's like today, it's a Sunday. I woke up, met a friend at a meeting, came home, had breakfast with another friend and his daughter. Like, I have friends who think it's a good idea to let me around their children now. Like, that's a crazy thing. And I come out here, I tell you I'm going to be somewhere, I'm accountable, and I show up and do it, and then I'm going to leave here and go to another meeting and meet with 2 guys that I work with. Like, life is pretty freaking good.
You got any questions for me?
No, sir. No, sir.
I couldn't be more proud. I could hear you talk about that all day, every day.
I do.
I mean, to see you, to interview you twice, and both times, I absolutely couldn't be prouder.
I appreciate it.
Honestly, unbelievable.
And, I mean, not to sound self-serving or whatever, but I certainly wouldn't be here without this gentleman's help.
And it takes a village,
Yeah, it did take a whole village with me, but
right?